Good evening. Today is Wednesday, August 17th, 2022. Welcome to Market Profile Review for the ES, the E-mini S&Ps. This morning, this is a regular trading hour session, 9:30 to 4:15 Eastern Time. And you can see that we have been one-time framing up pretty strong. We've been in an uptrend for a little while here. On the larger picture, it's still just a correction. Arguably, but we've been one-time framing up, and then this morning we had sold off in the overnight, the Globex session. We were going to gap down. Okay, you can see the gap here between the low of yesterday and the open of today, and instantly something's changed. We have stopped one-time framing up, so maybe we're going to enter a range here. Maybe it's just a pause. I don't know, but it could mean that we are going to continue down. Today. It could have been a down day. Now today, the news was open, or excuse me, the news by and large was over at the open. There wasn't really much until 2 p.m. when we had the FOMC minutes. And then 20 minutes after that, there was a Fed chair that was going to speak. So it wasn't really till 2 p.m. that we were looking for any unscheduled news. Scheduled news. It could have always been something unscheduled, but anyway, let's move on to the profile here and talk about what coming into the market we were looking at. So we knew we were going to gap down. Okay, so the way it was looking, we had already moved quite a bit lower, and I tried to put these together early, but you don't really know where the market's going to open until you get to the open. And you have kind of an idea, and it's a lot of work. I mean, you can't really do this the night before. You have to kind of do it the day of and adjust it, and it's a lot of work to kind of go and change all this. So you kind of do it closer to the open so you can dial in what's going on. So we're looking at gapping down 10 points, and I'll show you that here. Here is the low of yesterday. It's kind of hard to read. It's at 78.75, the blue line right across. The C low here is the low of Tuesday. And the open is the red letter A right here. And we opened at 69.25, okay? So that is just about 10 points. So, close enough. That's a significant enough gap that there may be enough of a change that the momentum continues to the downside. But if you're looking at closing the gap, there's a lot of room to maybe capture a move, especially if it gets rejected from the prior low. So you have several points that you can take a bite from as it comes up to that low. In this case, because we gap down. So the first story was that we would go with the gap. That's what the gap rules means. That we would look to go with the gap, and got an opening range entry here, and we're looking for negative market internals and a high confidence open. And by that, it would literally mean we opened, test, and drove down. Well, that's not what happened. We opened. I don't like the word test, but that's just what this is called, open, test, and drive, and kind of profile lingo. But we opened at 69.25. It ticked down 2 ticks, and then moved on up. Okay. This pink or red line, or whatever it is, actually it's had a false start in this video. I normally would use more time than this, but I changed it to see where 1 minute would be because I use a larger time frame, and it wasn't the opening range wasn't. It was further up here, and I was talking about it in the video, and I thought, well, a lot of people use 1 minute. Let's see what it looked like on 1 minute. But this is 1 minute, and the opening range. Trade would be once the opening range is established, you enter when it breaks through the opening range to one side or the other. Okay, and I am selective on that. It isn't just an arbitrary bracket the opening range. In this case, I want to show you what happened here on that open. It's very important, and also what didn't happen. So we opened with a gap down. Let me move this out of the way here. We opened the gap down. And this like splashed on the screen fast. You know, it opened, and it the market. If there was anything below this low, let me open up the overnight profiles. Okay, let's see here. Oh, okay. I thought that was a low. It's not. Okay. So we opened right here at 69.25, ticked down 1,000 contracts, 23 contracts, and then came back through the open. Now, as you can see, it doubles here. 22 something, 24, 37. We're getting some volume developing to the upside. So this starts to move up, and you had in the overnight a big move down all night long. So you had the Asian session up here, rotational, and then somewhere after this period right here, something changed, and the market sold off one time frame, just directional most of the night. Most of the night, directional. Took out yesterday's low, and then got down here and sort of consolidated, built a lot of volume and value down here as far as the overnight goes. Well, what didn't happen? Okay, what did happen is we had attenuation and only 2 ticks below the open. What didn't happen is we didn't immediately go take out the overnight low. And what didn't happen is we didn't tick up a few ticks and then build volume to the downside, right? So now the gap, this story, potential story, is off for now. Okay. Now the market internals were mostly negative all day. Just continue to kind of steadily grow, even when we were going up. So it's something. It kind of takes a feel for that. You know, it's kind of like Delta. That's another way to look at it. All right, so the second story was that we closed the gap from a 10 cap, this should say down, from a 10-point gap down. And the strategy would be that we're going to squeeze these shorts, and been called an overnight inventory correction, because the overnight people were by and large in short positions all night. And as soon as the volume, the volume maybe looks thinner here, it's just the way the program develops it. It really is, the volume's a lot stronger on the open than it is in the overnight session. Okay, these numbers over here represent a couple hours, and these numbers are, maybe not, some of them aren't quite as much as this, but it's only in the first minute, right? So there's a lot more volume and bigger size that comes in generally in the regular trading hours. So forgive me if I'm being a little bit tedious. Many of you, if anybody's watching this, you probably already know this stuff, but let's talk about what happened here. So we were anticipating we're gapping down, and we could go 2 directions, right? The market's going to go up, down, or sideways. And at some point, if it's going sideways to start, it's going to go one way or the other, right? And we're looking at capturing, getting on board with that. So we could see that the most likely direction to profit would be to buy here and anticipate selling once it closes the gap or beyond, right? And it actually closed the gap, and then it actually came into prior day's range, and it went quite a bit of a ways. It took back literally all of this range extension. It went right to the IB low, initial balance low of yesterday. Okay, that could have been another target. Another thing, and I didn't write this in the anticipated storyline. I'm lacking a tool here. Let me see if I can find a circle. Maybe I'll have to use an arrow. I don't know where the circle is. Oh, more tools here. Ellipse, that's what I'm looking for. Okay, what was I going to do with that? Here's the IB low up here, right? Oh, right here on the prior low a day, you can see we built some volume. As soon as we came in there, this started to build some volume. So one could either wait until you came into yesterday's range and get long. That's another option. Or you could add to your position that's working for you, and take one off and then add another on. However you want to do it. This would be an opportunity to get long against this yesterday's low if it holds, and continue the move to the upside, right? Because the potential, it looks like the sky's the limit. We could just keep rolling up these shorts for hours, it could just move on up, get back to settlement, maybe before the FOMC. That's one idea. Well, it didn't happen like that. Okay. You can see that once we got up here, we started to really taper off on the amount of volume. It kind of fizzled out. Then came back down, and B opened here, made another stab to the upside at some point. But what the next story that we anticipated, now you could write 20 different stories if you wanted to, narratives, whatever, scenarios. But, you know, let's keep it simple and let's adapt as the day goes on. And you can't cover everything. There's just not, you don't need to. So once we've established the initial balance, and C period opens up down here in the lower half of the range, and it can't really get higher. Let's look at the volume. It's important. Now, watching this stuff peter out like this, it can happen fast. That, you know, it just rejects and then thrusts downward. You know, so it's not like you're going to see it tapering off and go, okay, sell it. It happens very fast. You know, but what happened was, once we've opened and not getting much upside, and we start moving down towards the lows, at this point we have a poor low in the initial balance, right? That means it's kind of, one way to look at it, it's an unfinished auction. So it may be revisited again to go down until there are no more sellers. So we come down, and once we take that out, it's very reasonable to expect we're going to take out the overnight low. So that's exactly what happens. We take out the overnight low. Now, there's a lot of back and forth in the ES. Things just don't happen generally in a straightforward manner. It's a lot of shell games, a lot of moving back and forth. You know, the art of misdirection. Okay, getting people to think we're going up, and then you crush it, and all that. So the next story, once we've taken out the initial balance and the overnight low, there's opportunities all through here. I mean, there's opportunities to, when we come back into the overnight range or the initial balance, to anticipate, well, maybe that's the end of that that's the end of that excursion, and now the army's marching north, right? And so you could get long on some of these concepts, but it wasn't over. Now, yesterday I had the story to re-enter the range 2 days back, and I used that play today as well. Re-entered a range 2 days back. It traded the other side of the range. Now, the conditions were that we're going to enter yesterday's initial balance and lower distribution, build value, and the market internals support the direction. Well, the market internals supported the direction. The way the market was trading, taking out the overnight low, everything was supporting that we're going lower. And I want you to look at 2 days back. So let me put all these in their own column so we can see it. So this is excuse me, this is today, right? This is yesterday. This is 2 days back. So ipse facto, when we opened up in yesterday's, or with a gap down, we opened up in value and in range of the prior day, okay? Or 2 days back, forgive me. And we actually, when we're in C period here, we're below value of that. And again, the idea was to trade to the other side of this range. Well, that's exactly what happened. Came down, traded the other side of this range, and took out, if there were any stops down here, took those out. What didn't happen, which I thought was interesting, which I really thought would happen, let's see here, was this poor low over here in the overnight. So we never got there. You know, it was quite a bit further away, but that was accomplished. So that was a potential to somewhere in here, whether you're trading against the overnight low, against the intraday value area low, against the initial balance low, maybe even the overnight VPOC, you name it, wherever you were savvy enough to recognize that we might be going to take all these single prints back and trade down into this distribution down here and the other side of this range, because some things don't always happen immediately, right? So one of the stories from yesterday was to re-enter the range from 2 days back and take back to the other side of the range. Well, that happened last night, right? Or began to happen last night. Okay, let me split these out. Began to happen last night, and we came down here, came up here, and then stabbed down again. That was accomplished. Next thing you know, we're moving to the upside. And by virtue of the fact that we traded on this side of the initial balance and this side of the initial balance, both sides, nobody's really in control. And that's typical on FOMC. You have people waiting to see what's going to happen at 2 p.m. Eastern. And so we have what's called a neutral day. And you can see that we closed right in here. I don't know where settlement is. I didn't look it up. The open was down here. But we closed back inside of range yesterday. And, value is lower, but, it doesn't seem like a ton has changed, at least since the open of the day. All right. So those are the stories, and that's what happened. But, what didn't happen as well is we did not take out this poor low. And once we came back into this, let me use the crosshairs. Once we came back into 2 days back into that range, well, that was another opportunity to say, okay, maybe we're going to move back up, back towards the overnight low, back towards, at that point, wherever the volume point of control was. Let's see. Well, can I see where it was here? Let's see. If I split it. Yeah. In E period, the volume point of control was here, and we were at some point, let's see, I think this is where wait a minute, D, a little confused why, yeah, this is where it opened. E opened here and went all the way down, right? F period is what I'm looking for. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, let me merge this. Yeah, the volume point of control on the day is all the way up here, and we got far away from home, really. Call this home base, right? Got way down here, and then once that opened and the volume's kind of low and we started to pop up this way, we're looking at maybe a move back up into the overnight range, back into the intraday, back up to the value area of the day, back towards these volume point of controls, and that's exactly what happened. And this was a real nice move all the way back up, and we had to spend some time in here, but through J period, came all the way back, all the way up here, almost to settlement from the other day. So it had to push off, and then K period, I think K period did come down a lot before it went on up, but it went up to the pivot point, not even quite to settle. So that's another thing that didn't happen. It didn't get to settle, it didn't get to the volume point of control of yesterday. And then it sold off. But at this point, after it hit the pivot, I was finished for the day. I was done. So I didn't really follow what happened after that. And unfortunately, for the first half of the day, I wasn't in front of this machine. I was on a laptop, so I was missing some information. And then I was back here where I have all my tools, somewhere in here. But that's the stories that played out, and there's plenty more of them that on a smaller time frame you could look at, or that happen later. But you got to take it one piece at a time. It's not a bad idea to, at some point during the day, to write a whole new set of stories. To continually be thinking, okay, imagining what could happen, and how, what it needs to look like, what the environment needs to be like to support what I'm expecting it to do if it begins to seem to do that. Once we took out the initial bounce high, where are we going? Well, this is supportive of all this overnight stuff. It's supportive of possibly short covering, and that is kind of how it behaved. Once we got inside yesterday's value area low, well, now we're looking at special situation, 80% rule situation, where we might trade to the other side of value. But what happened is we popped back out of the value area, so that was invalidated. Doesn't mean it still wouldn't happen, but that's sort of the way that's designed, that trade, is to get long once you're back inside the value area. After 2 TPOs, trade inside of it, but you got to stay within it on the second one and onward. But what did happen here? Now I was not paying attention at this point. I was kind of worn out and done. We are back. No, let me think here. Yeah, when L period opened down here and made a high here, at some point you're looking at possible more downside, because this right here is a reversal pattern. You got a high, a higher high, and a lower high than the other two. All right, so this is kind of a reversal pattern. All right, well, I hope this has been of value to you. That's the day, and I only had three stories, and they played out pretty well. I caught one of them, and then one of them I didn't. I caught one of them, and then I caught a lot of this move. Okay, which I didn't write about in the story. So the other ones, again, I was away. I had to go somewhere this morning, and I had my laptop with me and all that. So this was one, but this was the other one. This move, taking out the range, I was not on board with that. But that was I like how that played out, And that, again, the important takeaway from that is, that was the idea from yesterday. Well, it took until today before it really played out. And that's something that I am still growing into, is like that immediacy effect of like, these kind of things may happen, but it doesn't mean they're going to happen today, and carry it forward. So that's why I carried forward that 2 days range back story. All right, thank you very much. Make a great day. Hopefully see you tomorrow evening. Bye.